Yo, 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 good morning. Grateful for another maggot-free day above the dirt, Jersey Shore. Check it out. So, this video, it's not part 3 of the conspiracy videos, but it in essence is kind of responding to a couple of the conspiracy theorists that had issue with some of the things I said in my conspiracy theory videos. So thank you, Raul. Raul asked me to speak on this. So anyway, I always find it interesting when people that are deeply devoutly religious, especially very rigid in their traditional belief of God, to automatically assume that someone that's atheist is a bad person. Like they lack any ability to have an ethical, moral compass. And of course it's ridiculous. And of course I'm not saying all people that believe in God do that. But this kind of logic was used towards me with my speaking about the difference between a very rigid conservative Buddhism and a more modern take on it. That somehow people with a modern take on Buddhism lack that ethical moral compass, and are not necessarily bad people, but just that they're inferior in their Buddhism and in their practice of it compared to the traditional people. I already got into how the Buddha actually did everything in his day that a modern Buddhist is doing today. He stepped out of the dogmatic religion of the day. He got rid of practices that didn't resonate for his path. He isolated teachings that did, and through his direct experience created his path. He didn't create Buddhism. You know, unfortunately a religion was started around that. And I don't mean unfortunately in a bad way, I just mean it kind of muddles what he did in the message for many that are seeking that same message. So I don't want to get too deep into that, only that, you know, meditative practice, spiritual practice is not something that should be separated into compartments. We don't have daily worldly life and then a spiritual life. All life is spiritual. All activity is meditative and spiritual. And you don't need certain trappings and cultural activities to be authentic, right? So really what the Buddha did was completely, he was the first rebel, anti-establishment, counterculture, spiritual revolutionary by stepping away from the norm and following his own instinct to what resonated with him. Now that doesn't mean it's a license to do whatever you want, but in essence it creates a heightened level of awareness towards one's own ethical moral compass. Rather than less, it creates a stronger one because you're really in touch with what you're doing because it's your choice, not because it's mandated by others. So where I kind of fall in this is, if you know me, I'm very steadfast about the fact that we should know what we don't know, and that we shouldn't claim we know or profess we know if we haven't had a direct experience that truly validates it. So in that sense, in that spirit, I'm falling in the area of an agnostic front, right? And those of you just got that OG reference. So let me just start with saying that my religion, my spirituality, my practice ultimately is about understanding, compassion, kindness, and love. and the behavior and actions and thinking that give rise to that. It's as simple as that. Now, after that, whatever rituals I choose to engage in to assist and support that aspiration and intention is up to me. Now, I used to have a problem with real traditional religious rituals and practices. And then I realized a practice in and of itself is working on my resistance to them and finding a way that I can make them work for me in the context of the path I'm carving for myself. So that path, while it might be an agnostic front of sorts, that's not to say I don't believe in certain things. It just means I don't know. I haven't had the conclusive experience to validate it or not. But what I do realize is we all probably tend to believe in something greater than ourselves, whether it's a community, whether it's the interconnectedness of humanity, whether it's some kind of energy or vibration you feel. So for me, believing in, quote, a higher power is about not being in my small mind, not being in my small self, which is a Zen kind of thinking, but to not be engaged in attachment to my egoic desire, and to diminish that ego and realize the insignificance and small, tiny part I am of all of this. And in realizing that insignificance, I become very significant in my own practice and significant to others, because then my practice becomes about serving others and helping others, not about my own gratification in any way. So to me, that's a higher power belief that works for me. And everything that people tend to feel authentic or traditional about is in hindsight. Because if you're a Japanese Buddhist that really draws a line in the sand about Japanese activities and arts, and rituals in your Buddhism, well, before that was added, or as it was being added, an Indian guy would say, dude, what are you doing to my Buddhism? This stuff doesn't apply. And now in modern day, right, we see the same thing. People that hold in hindsight all the, let's say, Japanese things added, like flower arranging and the tea ceremony and archery and certain martial arts and all of that stuff is now considered authentic and traditional, hundreds of years later. And now those people that hold on to those as authentic and traditional, forgetting about how they had nothing to do with Indian Buddhism, are now saying, what are you doing to my Japanese Buddhism? You can't add fighting of jiu-jitsu. You can't add skateboarding and surfing and rock climbing and triathlons and jumping in the mosh pit. Those aren't spiritual activities. But guess what? In hindsight, they will be. They will be. There's no doubt. Somewhere in the future, some dude's going to say, I'm not into all that traditional, crap. I'm not into that jiu-jitsu. I'm into being some lightsaber carrying samurai space warrior. That's what's happening now. So look, Buddhism's always evolving and changing, and it doesn't matter what the ritual or activity is. It matters the intention behind it and the experience that's had based on that intention. Okay? So for me, I'll leave it at this. Ritual, or being spiritual, is engaging in any ritual or activity that engages my spirit. Spirit doesn't mean something otherworldly or outside of me. It means my heart. It means my passion. It means my drive, my dedication, my perseverance, my happiness, my excitement. That's what my spirit is, my resolve. And any ritual that does this, any spiritual ritual that I find can be done religiously, right? So for me, those words can have a lot of baggage: ritual, spirituality, religion. But what I do is I engage in rituals that ignite my passionate spirit, and I do that religiously to engage in practicing compassion, understanding, kindness, and love. So I hope that was helpful. And I wish you a maggot-free day above the dirt. Hope you're grateful for it. And peace out.